Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now in the last one we took a look at the GTX 970 in pairing with the i7 2600, an older quad-core CPU. Today we're seeing how it performs with a more modern and more capable processor, the i5 12400. Now the GTX 970 on eBay sold for an average price of $48 over the last 10 listings in the US and £46 here in the UK. And for that money I think it's a solid choice even for 1080p gaming in 2023. I'm going to be testing a handful of popular and demanding games today to see how well it holds up and see whether or not one of these is worth buying. Launched in 2014 and starting at about $329, this card was very well reviewed. It was subject to later controversy because of the VRAM, but the card still found itself at the top of the Steam hardware survey. So let's get into some games and see what it can do in 2023. I've used settings that I feel combine visual quality with performance. Starting off with Fortnite at 1080p with a medium preset and TAA, we saw 93 FPS on average with a 1% low of 77 and a 0.1% low of 52. A decent average with some smooth percentile lows. Cyberpunk 2077 needs the help of FSR in order to average 60 FPS, but with quality mode enabled here, the medium crowds, medium textures and everything else set to lowest, we hit 60 dead on with a 1% low of 46 and a 0.1% low of 42. The frame rate figure will drop in and around busy areas. In Red Dead Redemption 2 I used the high textures with everything else set to medium including TAA. The geometry level of detail slider was set to 4, the grass level of detail slider was set to 2 out of 10, and the water physics was set to medium. On average we saw 56 FPS with a 1% low of 44 and a 0.1% low of 42. Another nice result for this what can be a $50 card. It depends on the model of course as to how much you'll pay, but prices won't vary all that much, and for the money I think you're getting a lot of card. In Apex Legends we saw 121 FPS at the medium texture quality with everything else set to lowest and TSAA enabled. The percentile lows were also solid. Elden Ring, as you know, is capped to 60 FPS and this hit 60 FPS at medium settings with a 1% low of 51 and a 0.1% low of 48. So again, no issues here, and the 970 is still fine for the most part if you manage your expectations with the settings. Marvel Spider-Man up next. This one required FSR again to hit at least 60 FPS. If you're happy with lower, then FSR isn't needed. But as I said, I like to try and combine good looking settings with decent performance, and this I think was a nice middle ground here. 48 was a 1% low and the 0.1% low was 41. SSR was also turned off as this did impact the frame rates a little bit. The Witcher 3, the next gen version of the game at 1080p with the high settings with hairworks off, SSAO enabled and screen space reflections set to low with TAAU. On average 65 FPS with a 1% low of 53 and a 0.1% low of 45. GTA 5 is older of course, but here it runs absolutely fine with the highest settings, the shadow set to softest and the advanced graphics off. FXAA was enabled. 100 FPS was the average with a 1% low of 77 and a 0.1% low of 68. Now the Hogwarts Legacy result actually surprised me quite a bit because even though we had to use FSR to quality, we still saw almost 60 FPS and I expected a lot lower despite the implementation of upscaling here. This was also with the medium preset, so the game still looked pretty good, and with TAA low also turned on we saw 58 FPS with a 1% low of 45 and a 0.1% low of 38, so there really weren't any stutters or horrible frame drops to speak of either. For The Last of Us, I think the card struggled quite a bit with this one. We had to enable FSR balanced and opt for the lowest settings in order to hit at least 40 frames per second. Actually, switching between the various FSR presets as well as changing a few graphical options didn't really do much to the performance, and it was a bit all over the place, but perhaps it is the VRAM limitation. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 now 1080p with a basic preset. This is full 1080p. I haven't messed around with the resolution scaling at all here. SMAA T2X, the normal AA quality for 87 FPS, again with some solid percentile lows. So another good result for the card. Forza Horizon 5 up next at the high preset with 1080p and TAA. I think we would have been best to drop things a little bit to medium or enable FSR, but 61 FPS on average was still very good, and a 1% low of 53 with a 0.1% low of 52 meant that there were no dips or drops. Battlefield 2042 next. This one was limited to the low preset here in order to achieve over 60 FPS, which I think makes most sense in online competitive shooters like this one. It's always nice to be able to hit over 60 FPS in these competitive games, although even with these settings there were a few little drops in performance. Nothing major, however. And that just about wraps up our look at the GTX 970 in 2023. Still a surprisingly solid card, especially for the money. I mean, it's coming in at an average of less than $50 in the US, £50 in the UK. And I think for that sort of price, well, you can't really go wrong. The 4 gigs of VRAM is an obvious limitation, but again, for the money you're paying, I think you're getting a decent amount of card for that. But let me know your opinions down below as always. If you like this one, leave a like on it, leave a dislike if you didn't, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.